Hi, it's Dwyer. It is Saturday, February 5th, 2022. GamblersAdvisory.com, a free site. BettingAngle.us, a free site. Let's talk boxing. This Keith Thurman-Mario Barrios fight carries a lot of risk. Right? Both men lost for the first times in their careers in their last fight. Right? Thurman gets knocked down by Manny Pacquiao, gets off the canvas, does stage a comeback in the later rounds of the fight, but he loses for the first time in his career. Mario Barrios is in a very competitive fight against Gervonta Davis. So competitive that Gervonta Davis's close friend Floyd Mayweather talks to him in the middle of the fight and tells him he's got to do something. Davis then closes the show by stoppage. Right? Understand some of the other risk factors here. Keith Thurman is in his 30s. Right? He's something like 33 years old. Now, while that's a young man at heavyweight, in the welterweight division, that's a problem. Right? Also problematical is the 7th round of his fight against Josecito Lopez. We forget, Thurman won that fight, but he barely hung on that round. Lopez is cuffing him around. Thurman doesn't look to have good survival skills. Is barely holding on. Let's also remember that Keith Thurman, if he has a weakness, it's in taking shots to the body. Those seem to quickly deplete his stamina. Now, all of that said, including the fact that Thurman had some injuries, had a shoulder problem that kept him out for a while. Right? Since he's come back, he hasn't exactly looked like the Keith Thurman who existed before he left the sport for a bit. Also, if you look at Keith Thurman, Thurman is a guy who looks a little bit heavier than 147 when he's giving interviews, right? Not training for a fight. It's a recipe for disaster for an older fighter to be having weight problems, to have to drain his body to make weight, right? When you're a young man, when you're 22, 23, your body can take it. When you're older, your body might not be able to. You might notice weakened punch resistance. Now, all of that said, I like the favorite here, Keith Thurman, at a minus 200, which are the current odds that I've seen. I like Thurman to win the fight. Would not be surprised if Thurman wins it by stoppage. This is the first time, by the way, that Mario Barrios is using 10-ounce gloves. Let's talk about it. Now, we forget how good Keith Thurman was. He beat Sean Porter. He beat a then unbeaten Danny Garcia. If you want to see how to beat a mid-range hooker, that's the fight to look at. Thurman starts the fight and he comes right down Main Street. He's on his front foot. He comes forward on Danny Garcia. He's throwing shots right up the middle. Right? Knowing that Danny is a hooker and vulnerable up the middle. Thurman's aggressive before Garcia has had a chance to figure out the angles. Right now, Garcia does fight admirably, does make a comeback in that fight. But that was a great moment for Keith Thurman. Let's remember, too, he beats Robert the Ghost Guerrero. Importantly, just to give you an idea of what the casinos thought of Thurman, on the opening line, not the closing line, but the opening line, Keith Thurman was the favorite to beat Manny Pacquiao. He calls himself one time. The bottom line is he is a big-time slugger. Very good on his front foot, as he showed in the early rounds of that Danny Garcia fight. But he also has an excellent back foot game. I want people to go back a few years to the John Zavik fight. You're going to see Thurman, knowing that he's the better boxer, practically shut out Zavik on his back foot. Thurman is a guy, too, who actually alters his style for his opponent. He's not a fastball pitcher. He's not a guy with a predetermined style, think Joe Smith, who's going to come in and impose that style on his opponent. Now, this is the guy who comes in differently depending on what his opponent is doing. He's also a guy who changes things up a bit. You saw this in the Pacquiao fight, right? He gets knocked down on his back foot backing up. He then decides instead to be more front foot and lateral the rest of the fight. Is improving as that fight goes along. Right? Mario Barrios, people need to understand, this is going to be the heaviest he's weighed in a fight. Right? Let's remember, his last fight was at 140 pounds against Gervonta Davis. I'm assuming most of the people here understand that Keith Thurman is a bigger man than Gervonta Davis with a bigger punch. That they're fighting in a bigger weight class. Now, Barrios used to spar with Amir Khan. He has an excellent left hook. He can throw it as a counter. He can throw it as a lead. Right? But understand, like Josh Taylor, whatever skills Barrios has, and he has a lot of skills, when the bullets start flying, Barrios finds himself bent over the pocket. Think Billy Joe Saunders in the Canelo fight. Right? Barrios is actually taller than Thurman, but Barrios, in my opinion, doesn't use his height. Now, he has a great trainer, Virgil Hunter, unfortunately. The Virgil Hunter fighter who I feel would beat Keith Thurman if we were to pretend they were the same weight, and they're not, is Andre Ward. Right? The fight Andre Ward fought against Kovalev, where Ward is bouncing around and he's giving out a withering body attack. Right? He's attacking Kovalev's core. He's already past Kovalev's jab. And he's moving around and he's throwing hooks to the body, and Kovalev, who has a great jab, can't find him. And of course, Andre bullies Kovalev over to the ropes, where Kovalev ends up on the ropes, getting battered to the body. That's the fight, to me, that would beat Keith Thurman. Right? A body attack where the person is moving, where the person's aggressive, where he's not there to get hit by Thurman. I don't believe that's Mario Barrios. I believe he's fighting a bigger man than he's fought before. He's using gloves that are heavier than he's used before. He's coming off not just a loss like Thurman. He's coming off a knockout loss to Gervonta Davis. If he had a problem taking Gervonta Davis's punch, he's going to have one hell of a problem dealing with Keith Thurman's. Let's remember, too, certain things fade with time. Reflexes, for example, right? Stamina. But power, as they say, and I believe this is true, is the last to go. Whatever their heights, I think Keith Thurman is not going to view Mario Barrios as a true welterweight. I know Barrios is saying, hey, I walk around at welterweight. That's fine. You haven't been fighting welterweights in real fights. So I'm expecting Keith Thurman to come in and to try to prove a point. Right? Let's remember, this was a great fighter. Don't be fooled by, we'll call it the boycott of Keith Thurman that's been taking place. I don't know what's happening at 147. But let's just say I have not been impressed by the excuses offered by Errol Spence as to why he hasn't fought Keith Thurman. Right? All I can say about Terence Crawford, and I get that Crawford's suing Top Rank, but I hold the fighter accountable for not being able to make big challenges happen. Right? Crawford wasn't able to fight Errol Spence, right? Spence is fighting Ugas next. Spence is keeping it in-house for Premier Boxing Champions. Okay, whatever, right? I don't understand why Crawford didn't actively pursue Keith Thurman. Right now, maybe there's more to the story. Maybe Thurman quietly let it be known that he was taking time off. Thurman made a lot of money, folks. A lot of money. Several Thurman fights drew more than 10,000 fans. Thurman's been the headliner at places like Barclays. Right, but the way it looks to me is that people were not in a hurry to fight Keith Thurman. Right, the excuses they gave Errol Spence said Thurman's corny. Right, folks, you either want legacy or not. I couldn't imagine Joe Frazier saying, I'm not fighting Ali because he's corny. Right? If you want legacy, if you want to show us you're the best, then you actively seek out elite opposition. You know, it's a bit amazing that Manny Pacquiao has fought so many tough guys, right? Pacquiao, it's the senior citizen. Relatively speaking, it's the vet, Manny Pacquiao, who of course said, hey, I'll fight Thurman. Let's remember, after Pacquiao fought Thurman, Pacquiao was set to fight Errol Spence. Right, folks? Getting these tough opponents in the ring couldn't be that hard when Manny Pacquiao was doing it, and he was around 40 years old at the time. Right, so let's just say I believe Thurman has been actively avoided. Don't let that convince you that Errol Spence could beat Keith Thurman. By the way, you want another guy who's being actively avoided? Jaron Ennis right now. Right, you would think guys would say, okay, well, Ennis is either the future or he's overhyped. Let me fight this guy before he gets the experience to beat me. But that's not what's happening at 147 right now. So, Thurman has been out of the ring. I have no reason to believe that Thurman isn't still an elite fighter. After all, he did close the fight against Manny Pacquiao. Right? Knocked down early, had to survive another 11 rounds, and did so. Let me also point out, too, that Pacquiao is an outlier. In other words, Pacquiao's impossible to fight. You're not going to find faster hand speed. Pacquiao hits harder to me than Mario Barrios. Pacquiao is sudden. Now, if you're a rusty fighter, like Keith Thurman was, you're coming off a fight against Josecito Lopez, where you were struggling in that 7th round, right? Thurman fought Pacquiao too soon. You know what a nightmare it is. Pacquiao southpaw. That makes it even worse. He's fast. You have to remember he's left-handed. He's outside. Oh, he comes inside. He's throwing bombs. He has great legs, right? Pacquiao moves around the ring. I don't believe Mario Barrios presents that level of a challenge. So the bet I like, simply put, at a minus 200. He is the favorite. Is Keith Thurman simply to win? Right? I get the feeling Thurman wants to make one more charge at boxing. Right? I think Thurman understands that Errol Spence's eye might be worse than reported. Right? Ugas has a shot on Errol Spence. Terence Crawford needs an opponent at 147, right? I think Keith Thurman sees the opening. Boots Ennis needs an opponent at 147, right? I think Virgil Ortiz is immensely talented, but he's another one of these 147 guys who's been out of the ring for a while, hasn't he? I think Keith Thurman sees a situation, the same situation another vet, Manny Pacquiao, saw, where he could literally show up at 147 and then take on. Exhibit A, in Pacquiao's case, it was Keith Thurman, who was unbeaten at the time, then pivot and sign a contract to fight unbeaten Errol Spence. Right? I think Keith Thurman, right now, is seeing an opportunity to fight the winner of Ugas Spence, Boots, Terrence Crawford. I think it starts here against Mario Barrios, who doesn't have experience fighting at 147. Look at his record. He fought some fights at 143. His last fight's at 140. Now he's up against one-time heavy puncher, a guy who is a technician, who can come forward on his front foot. He's up against him with 10-ounce gloves at 147. I like the favorite in this fight. I'm expecting a Keith Thurman victory. That's how I see it. Let me hear from you. I hope you leave your comments in the comment section of this video. Thanks for stopping by.